First of all, acknowledge my colleagues from government. So we have the BGMEA administrator, the chair of Chittagong Port. We heard from our colleague in NBR, and I want to single them out because when you're trying to make change in the scale and the speed with which we're trying to do right now, you need key partners in key seats to be on the same wavelength, to be pulling in the right direction, and to be contributing energy into it. I know the BGME administrator was working beyond midnight last night with the Commerce Advisor. We've done that several times on many other occasions before. The Chittagong Port Authority and I, we have a very vibrant WhatsApp group with multiple ministries at the highest level represented in there. So the ease of doing business within government is not right. It's nowhere near where it needs to be, but it's only because you have key people in key seats. In addition to those here, we have obviously Ashik in Bida Beza, we have the NBR chair, the governor of the central bank. You just need half a dozen to a dozen people in key seats to demonstrate proof of concept. So it comes down to how do you make change? Because I'm sure you've come to sessions like this before. You've heard people say what it is that needs to be done, and then we forget about it and we wait for the next session and the next conference, and on you go. I'm hoping it'll be different this time round. When we come to a summit like this, it's not just for presentation reasons. It's to, A, learn what is it that we don't know and we can learn from each other. But more importantly, how do we find energy from each other to drive and push the system in the direction that we need it to go? This is system change that we need to effect. It's not just about one person doing one thing, and you might change the situation in that moment, but it doesn't scale into something that is system-wide, that can survive after you have left the scene. And so a summit like this is useful if we think of it as a vector. It's something that takes us forward. It's a milestone in the journey. And we look at this, we look at summits in this way, not just the ones here, but also abroad. A lot of the lead up to this conference, the people who are here, the themes that we're talking about, they were discussed in places like Davos, for example, and before that in COP29, and before that in the UN General Assembly. So they compound each other, and every single time, for those of you who are aware, the chief advisor wouldn't let go. He will make sure that before one of these conferences, he knows and he's on top of exactly what it is that we're trying to achieve. And then immediately after that, if it's abroad, even before we come back, he wants to do a team huddle, and he wants to make sure that we all understand what our deliverables are as a result of that. And this is going to happen again. We'll have a huddle in probably 48 hours' time with the chief advisor, and he will want to know exactly what it is that we're trying to deliver. And that is a huge difference. When you have that style at the top of government, and you see that style now adopted by some of the other advisors as well, there are some common themes that come about. You start looking at things on an interministerial level. It's no longer, oh, I have written a letter to that ministry, I'm waiting for the letter to come back. It's much more real time. Let's get to the next stage in the process. There's also a little bit more appreciation of the value of time. You mentioned time to market in the port. Well, the whole of government is meant to be a logistics operation. We move information from one place to another so that we can get decisions and we move to the next level. Government should be a transshipment operation. And we are the opposite of that. It is a set of customs blocks, basically, in the journey of any decision making. Sometimes infinite loops that it's very hard to get out of. And so the value of time is important, particularly for us, because we know we have a finite time in government, months. And in my case, I have distilled it down into a specific number of weeks that I know I'm going to be here. And for every week, I have some deadlines that I need to meet. And that is how some of our interministerial committees are also operating. It still doesn't mean that we're not getting a tremendous amount of resistance from various points in the process, from various parts of the process. Some of it is legitimate, and so we course correct where we realize that we perhaps needed to understand something differently. But in a lot of other cases, it's not legitimate because it's just resistance to a revenue model that a particular officer or a department might have had, and we are disrupting it, so you get resistance to that. The events of the last few weeks, the Trump tariffs, before that, the decision around USAID, which was then replicated by the UK's FCDO, means that we cannot rely on preferential treatment on a regular basis, whether it's GSPs to the EU or any other LDC-related or other advantages that we've had until now. It may be unfair, but that is the reality. So we need to become match fit a lot more quickly. If we end up with a 3-month, for example, a 3-month roadmap to prevent the imposition of the US tariffs, then it'll basically mean LDC graduation in 3 months' time. So we have to go completely away from the old style of working, which is let's do panels, let's do seminars, let's do conferences, and we'll revisit it over time. And if enough people can lobby the government, then LDC graduation will never happen. And we take it to the last minute. And we don't have to do labor reforms, and we don't have to do decarbonization, and we don't have to work on intellectual property, things like that. We have to work on all of those now. It is existential for industry and the economy as a whole. So that is where we need as much support as we can get. So if you make it, if you first of all keep the pressure on, but the pressure has to be pointed. You agreed to do this by this time. Why has that not been delivered? That's good kind of pressure to apply. To say, make very sweeping statements, highly generalized, 12 different things lumped into one conversation, nothing gets executed. So please help us, keep the pressure on, make it very pointed. Everyone has access to most of us, so we can try and respond to as many of those as possible. And then help us keep a sense of momentum. If you see something being done right, the national single window, for example, was mentioned, bonded warehouse or the authorized operator, there are actually lots and lots of very good cases that are popping up. The Chittagong port, when you look at the micro-level changes that he has made, just the physical state of the port, the queuing of the lorries, huge changes compared to where the starting point was. Not material compared to where we need to be, but certainly compared to where we were. So where you see those, please also reflect those and showcase them as what can be done so that we derive encouragement and inspiration, energy from those, and then we hopefully get more copycat initiatives by others, because it changes our self-belief of what we can do, and it changes the benchmark. We then start competing amongst ourselves as to who can take the next new shiny initiative. And that is how, certainly my theory of change is that is how you do it. You build momentum, you get results in specific cases, you advertise them, and you ask others, why can't we do that? Or why can't I do better than what that person has done? So apologies again, I'm a bit short of time today, but I've taken a lot of notes, so hopefully I'll be able to distill some takeaways for me. If after the event, if you feel that there are very specific things that should be followed up, what are the 3 most important takeaways from this panel? please do send them to me, and I will try and find an owner and a deadline to get movement on those. Thank you very much.